Pascagoula, Phantom Barber. In June of 1942, after a population boom brought by the increased manufacturing of warships in the area, the citizens of Pascagoula, Mississippi were stalked by more than the specter of war. They were stalked by a hair-cutting phantom terrorizing throughout the night. The man nicknamed the Phantom Barber by newspapers worked in the darkness, made more profound by the Army's blackout regulations. On Monday or Friday evenings, he slid a window screen to gain access to a house, crept inside, and cut the hair of sleeping occupants, particularly blonde girls. Not necessarily one lock or two, but sometimes shearing as much as a full head of hair. He took nothing else from the home except his prize. He began with 2 young girls in the convent of Our Lady of Victories, followed by a 6-year-old female child visiting another family. That time he left a clue, the print of a man's barefoot in sand on an unoccupied bed in the room. The police were baffled and offered a $300 reward for any information. The public was in a panic. Women refused to go outside at night. Men applied for pistol permits. Bloodhounds were brought in to track the bizarre intruder, but the efforts all failed. The Phantom Barber continued his hair-cutting incursions. At last, the Phantom broke his pattern, or so it seemed. A window screen was slit in the room of Mr. and Mrs. Terrell Heidelberg, and their intruder came inside their bedroom. However, rather than cutting hair, he brutally assaulted the couple. Mrs. Heidelberg lost her front teeth and was knocked unconscious, while her husband was beaten with a metal bar. Both survived the attack. 2 months later, the police chief announced the arrest of a suspect, William A. Dolan, a chemist who was charged with attempted murder. A connection between Dolan and the Phantom Barber came with the discovery of human hair allegedly found near his residence. He continued to deny he was a phantom, and while convicted of the attack on the Heidelbergs, he bore a grudge against Terrell's father, a judge, was never charged with the Phantom's acts. Since the Phantom Barber never touched his victims other than their hair, it would seem no meaningful tie exists between Dolan and the Phantom Barber, whose break-ins ended as mysteriously as they began. Kyra. Around April the 8th, the Bowen family in Kyra, New South Wales, Australia, was terrorized by heavy thumps and bangs on the walls, followed by showers of stones striking the roof and the outside of the house, sometimes breaking windows. The apparent poltergeist attacks continued every night. Local police investigated, patrolled the area, and even surrounded the house, but stones continued to fly and loud bangs were heard. A team of detectives from Sydney kept the Bowen family under constant surveillance and formed a double cordon around the residence to no avail. The thumping did not cease, nor did the stone throwing, much to the neighborhood's anxiety and distress. Detectives concluded the family couldn't be responsible. At one point, a 12-year-old daughter, Minnie, confessed to throwing a few stones and rapping on a wall to scare siblings, but events proved she couldn't have been responsible for all the phenomena. Minnie appeared to be the focus of the activity. When she was sent to Glen Innes to visit her grandmother, violent thumps and bangs began to disrupt the house. Ornaments toppled off shelves. Stones were thrown out of nowhere. In early August 1921, Minnie returned home. The poltergeist activity declined, and it finally stopped. Minnie Bowen eventually married and never spoke to journalists about her past encounters with the unknown. The attacks have never been fully explained. Eleonora Zugon. At the age of 12, frightening events began to occur to Eleonora Zugon. When she visited her grandmother's cottage in Romania, stones smashed against the structure. Broken dishes added to the ordeal. A witness reported seeing a water jug float through the air and land several feet away. Her grandmom believed Eleanor was possessed by an evil spirit. Months later, Eleanor was sent to a monastery where she was given the exorcism with no effect. The priest sent her to a lunatic asylum. By that time, newspapers had reported her story, which came to the attention of Fritz Grunwald, a respected researcher. His observations of Eleonora concluded the supernatural phenomena was genuine. Next, she was invited to live with Countess Zoe Wasliko-Saraki in Vienna. The Countess became her protector and had 13-year-old Eleonora trained as a hairdresser. The strange events continued, including objects appearing out of nowhere or disappearing into thin air. The attacks on Eleonora escalated. She was knocked to the ground, slapped, bitten, had her hair pulled, and things thrown at her. On a couple of occasions, the Countess observed an inexplicable moving shadow in Eleonora's vicinity shortly before phenomena occurred. Eleonora was taken to London for more testing by the National Laboratory of Physical Research and also to Munich, where she was caught cheating. On her return, the activities began to fade gradually, although the attacks against her continued. By the time she turned 14, all phenomena ended and her life returned to normal. The Phantom Whistler. In February, 18-year-old Jacqueline Cadeau of Paradise, Louisiana, began hearing wolf whistles outside her bedroom window at night. The home she shared with her mom was also broken into by an intruder. She reported the incident to the authorities, but nothing came of it. Night after night, she heard the same whistles until she announced her engagement to State Trooper Herbert Balsam. The whistler changed his tune to a menacing funeral dirge. Around this time, Jacqueline also received telephone threats, the voice on the other end of the call promising to come to her home and stick a knife in her if she went ahead with her marriage. Her sleep continued to be broken by whistling dirges and blood-curdling moans. Newspapers picked up the story and hundreds of curiosity seekers began driving by the house in the hope of catching a glimpse of the Phantom Whistler or his victim. Jacqueline suffered a collapse when she, her mom, her aunt, and a New Orleans States Island reporter heard the whistler at work. The reporter and Balsam searched the yard but found no one. Investigations by the state police and the sheriff's office turned up nothing. The harassed bride-to-be, her nerves shattered, tried staying with relatives. The whistler soon followed. And when she went to the home of Balsam's parents, the whistler called her mother with a message: "Tell Jackie, I know she's at Herbert's house." On October the 1st, she and Balsam married. So was the whistler at the wedding as he'd promised? If so, he never spoke up, nor did he carry out his threats. The local sheriff considered the case closed, a hoax by persons he declined to name. So who was the Phantom Whistler, and why did he choose to terrify Jacqueline Cadeau? We'll never know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, make sure to leave a like. Until tomorrow, goodbye.